Heavy fighting has been taking place in Syria's second city, Aleppo, between Syrian government forces and rebels trying to win back several districts that they'd lost. Syrian state media said the army had overrun a rebel stronghold in the Salah ad-Din neighborhood and cleared it of rebel fighters.
The government reportedly sent 20,000 troops to the northern city. Opposition fighters say Assad's forces have launched fierce ground attacks using tanks in the Salah ad-Din district. Syria's state-run TV reports the troops have recaptured the rebel stronghold. But an anti-government activist in Aleppo disputes that claim. The activist tells NHK that fighting is fierce, but the opposition continues to control more than half the city.
Activists claim that this is the military shelling a funeral in the city of Deraa. Meanwhile, in the northern city of Aleppo, the activists also say that fighting is some of the worst they've seen in 17 months of this conflict. Both sides have been desperately trying to gain the upper hand in Aleppo. Taking control of that city wouldn't just be a psychological victory for the rebels. It would allow them to bring in more aid, fighters and weapons from bases in neighboring Turkey. Much of the fighting so far has been centered on the district of Salah ad-Din. State media report government troops are in control there.
Satellite images released by Amnesty International show what it says are around 600 craters created by artillery shells close to a residential area near to Aleppo, a further indication of the intense pounding the city is taking. It underlines the significance of Aleppo to both sides in the escalating conflict.
A Syrian government security source told Lebanon's Al-Manar TV that Syrian forces are now in control of the area and have inflicted heavy losses on the armed terrorist groups. But the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says that fighting is ongoing and rebels are trying to retake the area. Due to the situation in Syria, independent verification of the situation on the ground is difficult. Turkey says that in the last 48 hours the number of people fleeing the fighting in Aleppo has increased. Aleppo, Syria's largest city and commercial hub, is some 40 kilometers from the Turkish border.
Syrian rebels appear to be losing the city of Aleppo. That comes as no surprise. For days, rebel leaders have been telling us without an immediate influx of ammunition in particular, the rebels could not continue to fight in the city and would have to withdraw. And now that seems to be happening. Today, Syrian troops pushed deeper into Aleppo, even taking over the neighborhood of Salah ad-Din, which had been the rebel stronghold in Aleppo. What's happening in Aleppo is also significant in the broader context of the war, because every time the rebels have taken on the vastly superior Syrian military, they've lost. When rebels tried to make a stand in Damascus, they couldn't hold the city, and when they tried to make a stand in Aleppo, the same result. The big question now, Brian, is what the Syrian army will do next.
Muaffaq has retrieved what he could from the ruins of his home. In what's left of Aleppo's Salah ad-Din neighborhood, there's little time to ponder one's loss. The situation is terrible, Muaffaq tells me. We're taking everything we can. We don't know where we'll go. We've lost everything, so we're leaving. His family of 7 is just one of thousands of families who have fled Salah ad-Din. Now one of the main battlefields between government forces and the rebels. 17-year-old Hamza has been fighting here for the last 2 weeks. He says several of his comrades were killed by Syrian army snipers earlier in the day. These lightly armed fighters have managed to hold off the army. Their most potent weapon is not in their enemy's arsenal, says this elderly fighter who identifies himself simply as Alexander.
We believe in God. And this Kalashnikov, old Kalashnikov, we can fight with them and we will win because we have Iman.
Faith.
We have faith. We believe in God. They don't believe in God. If he believes in God, he don't pump his people.
The death and destruction is not restricted to the front lines. Government jets regularly bomb targets around the city. The rebels fire back with their light machine guns. The rebel-held district of Sukkari, further removed from the fighting, provides its inhabitants with the illusion of normality. A few shops and street vendors are at work. But prices are up. A kilo of tomatoes costs 4 times what it did a month ago, and that's if you have the money to buy it. There's little work to be had as the city turns into a battleground. Tamer the baker is preparing date-filled cakes for the breaking of the Ramadan fast. He says he's too busy to worry about the fighting. It's an odd feeling here in the parts of Aleppo occupied by the Free Syrian Army. People are out, they're buying vegetables, the bakeries are working, but all the while, occasionally, you hear blasts like that as the area comes under bombardment.